This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Sean Diddy Combs was indicted on Tuesday on multiple charges.
Threatened and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires.
I'm Kevin Carr.
A coordinated explosives attack against Lebanon and Syria using pagers leaves more than half a dozen dead, and speculation Israel was behind it. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
Kamala Harris is condemning Donald Trump's rhetoric about Haitian migrants in Ohio and other topics. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Speaker Johnson moving forward on a plan to keep the government open.
This is not a sustainable trajectory.
I'm Clayton Neville.
The Dow and the S&P 500 index super close to all-time highs. It is Fed cut announcement day. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Former President Donald Trump made his first public appearance since his second apparent assassination attempt against him. I'm Haya Panjwani.
All ahead on America in the Morning. Rapper and music producer Sean Diddy Combs is being held without bail, facing numerous charges, including sex trafficking by force after his arrest in New York City. America in the Morning's Kevin Carr has the story.
Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs was arrested on Monday and indicted on Tuesday on charges of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking, U.S. District Attorney Damian Williams announced.
The indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct.
Other accusations of weapons possession, drug offenses, kidnapping, forced labor, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice are also involved. Combs is described as the head of a criminal enterprise that organized elaborate events with sex workers, some of which he videotaped for coercion purposes. Williams also refers to a videotape of Combs and his ex-girlfriend Cassandra Ventura, whom he settled a $100 million lawsuit with last year.
Combs hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair. On one occasion in March of 2016, that conduct was captured on video and later reported in the media.
Combs is the highest profile music artist to face charges like this since R. Kelly. And recently, he has been embroiled in other legal troubles. Just weeks ago, a Michigan judge issued a default judgment against Combs for $100 million in a sexual assault case, and former protege Dawn Richard filed suit against him last week, alleging sexual assault and inhumane treatment. In the courtroom on Tuesday, Combs pled not guilty, and Judge Robin Tarnowski ordered him to be held without bail. Combs' attorney, Mark Agnafilo, vowed to appeal the bail decision and fight the charges.
We have a bail appeal scheduled for tomorrow at 3:30, and we're going to fight this case with everything we have, as is he, and eventually he's going to be shown to be innocent.
If found guilty, Combs could face anywhere from 15 years to life in prison. I'm Kevin Carr.
U.S. officials are reacting to the news of hundreds of explosions of handheld pagers across Lebanon and Syria used by members of the terrorist group Hezbollah, leaving at least 9 dead. John Stolnis has the story from Washington.
The attacks wounded about 2,750 people, according to Lebanon's health ministry, 200 of them in critical condition, as pagers detonated at the same time inside the countries that support Hezbollah. Social media accounts in a suburb of Beirut show people lying on the ground with wounds to their hands and their legs near where pockets would be. Pentagon spokesman Major General Pat Ryder says it's too early to make any firm judgments about these attacks.
Again, I don't have any details to provide on the reports of the pager blast. I can tell you, to my knowledge, there's no U.S. involvement in this at all.
Some are pointing the finger at Israel in what appears to be a sophisticated and remote attack. The Israeli military has offered no reaction so far. Hezbollah, however, is promising to retaliate against Israel. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller urging all parties to avoid escalation.
And it remains our message to both Israel and to other parties that they needed to do everything they can to try and reach a diplomatic resolution.
The pagers are used by the Lebanese and Hezbollah to send messages to each other. Miller refused to speculate who was responsible.
Do you have any indications that to doubt that it would be Israel that was behind the
I don't have any assessment to offer one way or other at this point.
A number of civilians were injured and killed in the explosions.
Obviously, we believe that civilians are not legitimate targets for any type of operation, and that no country should be targeting civilians. No country nor organization should be targeting civilians. Members of a terrorist organization are legitimate targets.
Hezbollah has been launching attacks against Israel since October 7th, 2023. The pager attacks now raising fears of a wider war developing between Israel and Lebanon, its neighbor to the north. John Stolnis, Washington.
Attempting to avert the government shutdown. We'll have that and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back this Wednesday to America in the Morning. Here's the national forecast from AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
As a cold front pushes out of the Rockies and toward a primed air mass across the western plains, severe thunderstorms can break out today, not only in states such as North Dakota that faced severe weather Monday night, but from eastern Wyoming to far eastern New Mexico and across western portions of the Dakotas through the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles. Any storm this afternoon and into the night may be capable of producing hail and damaging wind gusts, but severe storms can reignite daily through Thursday in various parts of the northern plains after a recent lull in widespread powerful thunderstorms. The core of this same disturbance will actually hang out around eastern Montana for most of the day today. This means that there can be numerous showers and thunderstorms, along with some areas of steadier rain from central Montana and much of Idaho into mainly northern Utah and even western Colorado. A separate storm coming on shore will mean some steady rain close to the Washington and Oregon coastlines, with some showers farther inland as well. East of the Mississippi River, the main story is a tropical rainstorm that will continue to deliver some enhanced rainfall to parts of the southeast and the mid-Atlantic, with downpours expected from the Carolinas into West Virginia and even the Delmarva Peninsula. Expect continued rough surf, rip currents, and beach erosion around the mid-Atlantic as the heavy rain continues, with gusty winds throughout the Carolinas and even for parts of coastal southeastern Virginia that may still approach tropical storm force at times before this storm starts to pull northward. Otherwise, a stalled front means thunderstorms from Florida along the Gulf Coast into Louisiana, as areas from the Midwest to New England have a generally dry Tuesday in store with some sunshine. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Kamala Harris spent yesterday speaking to the National Association of Black Journalists and claims Donald Trump's rhetoric about migrants in Ohio and other topics is making people everywhere feel unsafe. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports.
In a rare extended interview at the National Association of Black Journalists, the vice president said officials who have a big microphone have a big responsibility, understanding their words have meaning, and Trump's attacks on Springfield's migrants are simply lies.
Grounded in some age-old stuff.
The message now?
Let's turn the page and chart a new way forward and say you can't have that microphone again.
2 days after another apparent assassination attempt on Trump.
There are far too many people in our country right now who are not feeling safe.
While she does.
Not everybody has Secret Service.
Harris says she spoke with Trump.
Checked on him to see if he was okay.
Trump says he's been shot at because of rhetoric from Harris and President Biden.
I told him what I have said publicly. There's no place for political violence in our country.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Despite pulling legislation earlier this month, House Speaker Mike Johnson will move ahead with a temporary spending bill that would prevent a partial government shutdown when the new budget year begins October 1st. Correspondent Clayton Neville.
House Speaker Mike Johnson says that Congress needs to take America in a better direction.
This is not a sustainable trajectory, and we can do better.
The Speaker blaming the Biden administration for high prices and for inflation in America, and believes that a unified Republican government under a Trump presidency, if Trump wins in November, would lead to a better economy.
The Biden-Harris economy has not done well for America. That is the understatement of the century.
The bill the Speaker's moving forward on includes a requirement that people registering to vote have to provide proof of citizenship. That a problem for Democrats, but something Republicans are pushing for. The bill expected to be presented on the floor today, and Johnson says he'll do what it takes to get it through. In the Senate, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says the legislation as proposed would be dead on arrival. I'm Clayton Neville.
When we return on America in the Morning, Fed Decision Day, after these messages. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. The Wednesday Report on America in the Morning. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
On Wall Street, the market opens this morning with the Dow and the S&P 500 index super close to all-time highs. It is Fed cut announcement day. I'm Jessica Ettinger. Wall Street opens this morning after a mixed day for stocks yesterday. The Dow and the S&P 500 index each hit fresh record highs and closed little changed. It's Fed decision day, and investors are expecting an interest rate cut.
The market and the data have impressed me. I think what we're getting is, more signs that a soft landing is something that can be navigated here by the Fed, and that clearly is what the market's responding to. So I'd say we're still in this position here where Goldilocks is looking and feeling pretty good for now.
Citi's Scott Cronert on CNBC. So the Fed wraps up a two-day meeting on interest rates this afternoon. Investors want to see that first interest rate cut in about 4 years announced. The CNBC Fed survey shows they're expecting a 0.25 percentage point. That's the same as 25 basis points, which is how experts refer to that move.
I think 25 feels like the right way to start a rate cutting cycle that, quite frankly, is not an emergency cutting cycle. It's a luxury to be able to cut at this point.
Ritholtz Welt's Josh Brown on CNBC. A cut in interest rates is good for business and for consumers. It makes money less expensive to borrow. A 0.25 percentage point you might not feel yet if you're carrying a balance on a credit card. Toy Insider out with its Hot 20 holiday toys for 2024. Hasbro's Play-Doh pizza delivery scooter is on the list for 3 to 4-year-olds, along with a radio-controlled Godzilla, which is made by Jada Toys. There's also a 12 under 20 toy list of budget-friendly toys under $20. Mattel's Mini Barbie Land and Melissa and Doug's Sticker Wow set are on that list. Christmas just about 99 days away.
This doesn't happen every day. The birth of a new airline.
Actually, it's 2 existing airlines that are being allowed to merge: Alaska Airlines and Hawaiian Airlines.
The DOT has cleared the way for Alaska Airlines to close its merger with Hawaiian Airlines. There are some stipulations in terms of consumer protections, things like no expiration of miles, family seating is required. This means that Alaska, which was the 5th largest airline, solidifies its position. By the way, Hawaiian will continue flying under that brand, as will Alaska.
CNBC's Phil LeBeau. On today's watch list, it's busy. It's Fed decision day. The Federal Reserve expected to announce an interest rate cut this afternoon. The announcement comes at 2 p.m. Eastern.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. The latest on the Titan submersible investigation when America in the Morning continues after these messages. We're back. This is America in the Morning. Donald Trump held his first campaign appearance in the battleground state of Michigan, his first since the second assassination attempt. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
Trump held a town hall in Michigan moderated by Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, his former White House press secretary. During the event, he addressed his assassination attempt.
And then you wonder why it gets shot at, right? You know, only consequential presidents get shot at. When I say something like that, you have countries saying this guy, but What can you do? You have to do what you have to do, right?
Trump repeated false claims that Chinese automakers are putting up large factories in Mexico. The GOP presidential nominee is also vowing to slap 200% tariffs on any vehicles made in unbuilt plants and shipped to the United States. He also said that he'll be meeting with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi next week. I'm Heya Panjwani.
More damning testimony into the implosion of the Titan submersible that was destroyed on its way to view the Titanic. Ed Donahue has details.
A key employee says the Titan submersible tragedy could have been prevented.
The whole idea behind the company was to make money. That's it. There was very little in the way of science.
OceanGate's former operations director, David Lockridge, testified he felt let down by a decision by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration not to follow through on his complaint. Before its last fatal voyage last year, he called the Titan unsafe.
I was how I felt a show pony. I was made by the company to stand up there and do talks. I think it was difficult. I had to go up, do presentations all about my experience, and my eyes, even at the time, they were selling me as part of this project.
10 months after filing the complaint, Lockridge walked away. The case was closed.
It was nothing. It was all smoke and mirrors, all the social media that you see about all these past expeditions. They always had issues with their expeditions. I didn't know this at the time.
Last year, 5 people died when the Titan imploded as it was headed to the wreck of the Titanic. I'm Ed Donahue.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, September 18th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
A federal judge in New York has ordered musician Sean Diddy Combs to stay in jail. I'm Margie Zaraletta with the latest.
Back on the campaign trail with Springfield and political violence top of mind. I'm Clayton Neville.
The Senate stops a bill to protect IVF, even though
there is not a single senator who wants to ban IVF.
I'm Linda Kenyon in Washington.
Investigations underway after suspicious letters were sent to state election officials. I'm Pamela Furr.
Florida will launch its own criminal probe into the apparent assassination attempt on Donald Trump in Palm Beach. Sagar Meghani at the White House.
Nikki Haley says she's launching a weekly talk show. I'm Heya Panjwani.
Back after these messages. We're back. This is America in the Morning, beginning in the West. AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton has today's national forecast.
As a cold front pushes out of the Rockies and toward a primed air mass across the western plains, severe thunderstorms can break out today, not only in states such as North Dakota that faced severe weather Monday night, but from eastern Wyoming to far eastern New Mexico and across western portions of the Dakotas through the Texas and Oklahoma panhandles. Any storm this afternoon and into the night may be capable of producing hail and damaging wind gusts, but severe storms can reignite daily through Thursday in various parts of the northern plains after a recent lull in widespread powerful thunderstorms. The core of this same disturbance will actually hang out around eastern Montana for most of the day today. This means that there can be numerous showers and thunderstorms, along with some areas of steadier rain from central Montana and much of Idaho into mainly northern Utah and even western Colorado. A separate storm coming on shore will mean some steady rain close to the Washington and Oregon coastlines, with some showers farther inland as well. East of the Mississippi River, the main story is a tropical rainstorm that will continue to deliver some enhanced rainfall to parts of the southeast and the mid-Atlantic, with downpours expected from the Carolinas into West Virginia and even the Delmarva Peninsula. Expect continued rough surf, rip currents, and beach erosion around the mid-Atlantic as the heavy rain continues, with gusty winds throughout the Carolinas and even for parts of coastal southeastern Virginia that may still approach tropical storm force at times before this storm starts to pull northward. Otherwise, a stalled front means thunderstorms from Florida along the Gulf Coast into Louisiana, as areas from the Midwest to New England have a generally dry Tuesday in store with some sunshine. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
You can follow us wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Sean Diddy Combs, one of the most famous rappers and music producers, is behind bars, ordered there by a judge after being arrested in a sex trafficking and racketeering case. Correspondent Margie Zaraletta reports.
A year ago, Sean Combs stood in Times Square and was handed a key to New York City. Today, he's been indicted and will face justice in the Southern District of New York.
U.S. Magistrate Robin Tarnowski refused a proposal from Sean Diddy Combs' defense to release him on a $50 million bond to home detention. Prosecutors say Combs drugged and abused women, then used his vast resources to cover up the crimes.
The indictment alleges that Combs threatened and coerced victims to get them to participate in the freak-offs. He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims.
Combs has pleaded not guilty. His attorney, Mark Agnifilo, said outside court the case stems from a consensual relationship.
He didn't do these things. This was a 10-year relationship. There's no coercion. There's no crime.
Agnifilo did not name the woman, but the details match those of Combs' relationship with singer Cassie Ventura.
We made the points that we've been wanting to make. I think it came out. Mr. Combs is a fighter. He's going to fight this to the end. He's innocent. He came to New York to establish his innocence. He's not afraid. He's not afraid of the charges. There's nothing that the government said in their presentation today that changes anyone's mind about anything.
I'm Archie Zaraletta.
The presidential candidates were back on the campaign trail addressing the second assassination attempt against former President Trump and continued fallout over rumors in Springfield, Ohio. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
Vice President and Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris took part in a moderated conversation with the National Association of Black Journalists. She addressed critics who point to her record as VP.
Is the price of groceries still too high? Yes. Do we have more work to do? Yes.
She was also asked about the dozens of school threat hoaxes in Springfield, Ohio, after widespread rumors by the Trump-Vance ticket that Haitian migrants were eating pets in Springfield.
A whole community put in fear.
She said the rhetoric from Trump and Vance is dangerous.
When you have these positions, when you have that kind of microphone in front of you, you really ought to understand at a very deep level how much your words have meaning.
Senator Vance snapped back during a rally in Sparta, Michigan, and blamed the media.
Every single one of those bomb threats was a hoax, and all of those bomb threats came from foreign countries. So the American media, for 3 days, has been lying and saying that Donald Trump and I are inciting bomb threats, when in reality, the American media has been laundering foreign disinformation. It is disgusting, and every single one of them owes the residents of Springfield an apology.
Vance spoke about the second assassination attempt against former President Trump. It happened over the weekend at a golf course in South Florida. He said he found out when Trump called him.
I almost couldn't believe it when he first told me, and I said, oh my God, sir, I'm so glad you're okay, but you're physically okay. Clearly, you wouldn't be calling me. Are you okay in all the ways that matter? And he said, yeah, I'm doing fine.
But Vance said the former president was frustrated.
Because he was on the 6th hole and he was about to make a birdie putt. And he said, I'm kind of pissed off they wouldn't let me finish my birdie. I was having the round of my life.
President Trump had a town hall in Flint, Michigan last night. It was moderated by Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. He promised to crack down on Chinese-imported electric vehicles from Mexico.
We're going to charge them, I'm telling you right now, I'm putting a 200% tariff on, which means they're unsellable. Unsellable in the United States. And then you wonder why it gets shot at, right? Only consequential presidents get shot at. When I say something like that, you have countries saying this guy, but what can you do?
The former president talked a lot about policy, the auto industry, and touched on immigration. He did say President Biden called him to wish him well after the weekend assassination attempt, and VP Harris did too.
It was very, very nice, and we appreciate that.
As for Harris's running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, he stumped in the Southeast. He was in North Carolina yesterday after hitting Macon, Georgia. I'm Clayton Neville.
The Senate has failed to advance a Democrat-sponsored bill protecting IVF, or in vitro fertilization. Correspondent Linda Kenyon has that story from Washington.
The vote was 51-44, far short of the 60 votes needed to even open debate on the bill. It was the second time Republicans blocked it.
The Senate blocked a ridiculous show vote bill that had no chance of passing.
Senator J.D. Vance, the GOP vice presidential nominee, was campaigning in Wisconsin, so he did not vote. But Texas Senator Ted Cruz did.
My colleagues on the other side of the aisle are staging an empty show vote on what they call an IVF bill in order to stoke baseless fears about IVF.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said those fears are far from baseless.
From the moment the MAGA Supreme Court eliminated Roe, the hard right made clear that they would keep going. As we saw earlier this year in Alabama, IVF has become the next target of ultra-conservatives, and access to this incredible treatment is more vulnerable than ever.
Senator Cruz rejected that.
Let's be clear. There is not a single senator in this chamber on either side of the aisle who wants to ban IVF.
If that's true, said Massachusetts Democrat Elizabeth Warren, they should have voted to advance the bill, but they didn't.
The Republicans in the Senate have now had not one but two chances to vote to protect access to IVF, and both times they have voted no. American women are not stupid.
Illinois Democrat Tammy Duckworth, one of the chief sponsors of the bill and a disabled veteran, added American women will not stand for this.
When I went to war to defend this nation's rights and freedoms, I expected that those freedoms to remain when I returned.
Duckworth is also the mother of 2 daughters, thanks to IVF. And she says Republicans should not stand in the way of other women who also want children.
All I'm asking of them is to simply support this bill that could represent millions of women's only chance of starting a family.
Former President Trump has said he supports IVF, and he proposes requiring the government or insurance companies to cover those treatments. But some Republicans, like South Carolina's Lindsey Graham, are wary. He suggested he does not back such a plan because, as he put it, there's no end to it. Linda Kenyon, Washington.
Tensions flare on the Boeing picket line. Tech titan sued by the FAA. Those stories and more next. America in the Morning returns after these messages. This is America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. Saying he wants to bring an attempted murder charge against the suspect arrested for a failed assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump, Governor Ron DeSantis has his state opening an investigation into Ryan Wesley Routh, claiming Florida may have a stronger case to bring than the federal government. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports.
Ryan Routh was charged with federal gun crimes. Governor Ron DeSantis says Florida prosecutors will run their own investigation, saying the state has jurisdiction over the most serious offense.
The suspect, Ryan Routh, is believed to have committed state law violations across multiple judicial circuits in the state. Also, the state of Florida has jurisdiction over the most serious, straightforward offense, which is attempted murder.
And he wants to make sure Routh is held fully accountable.
And I think the Florida agencies working from local on up have an opportunity to do a thorough investigation and then to provide the truth about what's happening. We have a strong interest in the state of Florida of bringing this suspect to justice to the fullest extent of the law.
More federal charges are also possible as Attorney General Merrick Garland's Justice Department seeks a grand jury indictment.
We will spare no resource in this investigation.
Sagar Meghani at the White House.
The FBI and the U.S. Postal Service are investigating after suspicious letters, some containing an unknown substance, were sent to election officials in a number of states. Pamela Furr has details.
We're talking at least 9 different states across the country: Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Wyoming, Colorado, Connecticut, and Indiana. Now, at least 4 of those states say the unknown substance tested negative for anything hazardous. In statements to CBS News, the agencies say they are working to determine exactly how many letters have been sent, the individual or individuals responsible for the letters, and the motive of the letters. Federal law enforcement and cybersecurity officials have warned state election administrators that serious threats are a possibility. We're also told election officials, specifically from battleground states, have confirmed threats have been escalating ahead of November. Meanwhile, the FBI says the public should be assured that safety is the agency's top priority and say, as always, if you see something, say something. I'm Pamela Furr.
Emotions have been flaring in Seattle, where striking Boeing workers are on the picket lines, including one altercation where a security guard flashed a gun. Julie Walker reports the airplane maker is now laying off workers in an effort to cut costs during the walkout.
As Boeing machinists continue walking the picket line, this one in Renton, Washington, the company says it's considering temporary layoffs to save cash. It will freeze hiring and reduce travel and spending on suppliers. Striking worker Rachel Ogg blames the previous CEO.
Like our CEO that previously left us, this was his mistake in the uppers. The hourlies didn't do this. This is their mistake.
About 33,000 machinists are striking. Boeing had offered them a 25% raise over 4 years. They had asked for 40%. Worker Greg Lathrop says Boeing needs to raise that offer.
We didn't want to do this any more than they did, but their first contract offer was a complete insult.
A federal mediator has been brought in. Audio courtesy Como TV. I'm Julie Walker.
Elon Musk is being fined again, this time for violating license requirements set forth by the FAA for SpaceX missions. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech News.
The FAA announced on Tuesday they are planning to fine Elon Musk's SpaceX Corporation for $633,000 for failing to follow license requirements and not getting approval for changes for 2 separate launches in 2023. The FAA's chief counsel, Mark Nichols, commented, "Safety drives everything we do at the FAA, including a legal responsibility for the safety oversight of companies with commercial space transportation licenses." Elon Musk responded on the social platform X, saying that SpaceX will be filing suit against the FAA for regulatory overreach. Musk also inferred that this was politically motivated simply by saying more lawfare. The FAA also said last week that SpaceX's planned Starship Flight 5 launch had a new configuration and triggered a more in-depth review, and a license determination is not expected before late November. Bitcoin up at 60,200 and Ethereum up to 2,345. Follow me on X for more tech news at Chuck Palm.
America in the Morning continues with midweek sports. Here's Robert Workman.
Baseball Tuesday, the Phillies tapped the Brewers 5-1 in a matchup of division leaders. Zach Wheeler went 7 innings for his 16th win. Only Atlanta's Chris Sale has more. Philadelphia's magic number to clinch a playoff berth is down to 1 and 4 to wrap up the NL East. Milwaukee is just 1 win away from securing the NL Central crown. Marlins down the Dodgers 11-9 in a slugfest. Jake Berger homered and drove in 4. Max Muncy had 5 RBI for LA. Shohei Ohtani hit his 48th Tater of the year. That matches his stolen base total as he aims to become the first 50-50 guy. Mets mauled the Nationals 10-1. Pete Alonso hit one out and drove in 5, picking up the slack with MVP candidate Francisco Lindor out with an injury.
It's the task that we have to deal with, and we hope that he has a super swift and speedy recovery. But in the meantime, the boys will hold it down.
New York is now tied with Arizona for the second NL wildcard. Rockies rolled over the Diamondbacks. Ezekiel Tovar and Hunter Goodman both went deep. If that sounds familiar, they did it on Monday as well. Reds rallied past the Braves, dropping Atlanta 2 games out of the NL wildcard. In the AL Central, the Twins topped the Guardians while the Tigers trimmed the Royals in 10 innings. Astros nipped the Padres in 10 to extend their lead in the West. Yankees torpedoed the Mariners. Aaron Judge drove in 4. He's got 136 RBI. No one else in the majors has more than 110. Giants blanked the Orioles. Blake Snell in the Smells with a 5-hitter. Angels shut out the White Sox. Griffin Canning in the Preserves with a 6-hitter. Rays ripped the Red Sox. A's edged the Cubs. Cardinals stopped the Pirates, and the Rangers thumped the Blue Jays. NFL, the Dolphins placed quarterback Tua Tagovailoa on injured reserve with a concussion he suffered last Thursday against the Bills. He'll miss at least 4 weeks. Third-year man Skylar Thompson will start Sunday against the Seahawks. Week 3 begins tomorrow night with the Patriots at the Jets. That's Wednesday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. When we return on America in the Morning, the Russians are coming. Facebook gives them a thumbs down after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Facebook parent company Meta announced strong sanctions of Russian media organizations to curb potential election interference. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports.
Meta says it's banning Russia state media organization from its social media company platforms, alleging that the outlets use deceptive tactics to amplify Moscow's propaganda. Meta owns Facebook, WhatsApp and Instagram. It said in a statement it will roll out the ban over the next few days in a fresh escalation of its efforts to counter Russia's covert influence operations, adding it's expanding its ongoing enforcement against Russian state media outlets, which are banned from its apps globally for foreign interference activity. The announcement has drawn a rebuke from the Kremlin. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
You're going to have to dig a lot deeper to see one college football team play next year. Correspondent Gethin Coolbaugh reports one university announced they're passing the financial buck to fans for paying for its players.
The University of Tennessee has announced a price hike for football tickets starting in 2025, with most of the increase going specifically to help pay players. The increase, announced Tuesday morning in an email to season ticket holders, notes a new 10% talent fee to help pay the proposed revenue share for athletes. Athletic Director Danny White explains in a video the price hike will help Tennessee continue attracting and keeping the best athletes. Tennessee has been working to be at the front of the changing landscape, supporting athlete compensation since the NCAA changed its rules in 2021. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
She was a governor, a member of the Donald Trump cabinet as ambassador to the United Nations, and a former presidential candidate. Now correspondent Haya Panjwani reports that Nikki Haley is launching a radio talk show.
Nikki Haley says she's launching a weekly talk show on Sirius XM satellite radio starting next week. The last Republican opponent of Donald Trump, who was left standing in the GOP nomination fight, will interview guests, take calls, and talk policy, and maybe a little Clemson football on her show. She also hopes to take away some of the predictability that's present in partisan media. The former United Nations ambassador and South Carolina governor said her aides have begun talking to Trump's team in the past 2 weeks about making campaign appearances, but nothing has been set. I'm Haya Panjwani.
And that's our show for today, Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. America in the Morning is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.